Good afternoon. I'm Rich Connor. I'm the publisher of the Fort Worth Business Press. Former job was Star Telegram. I want to welcome you this afternoon. This is our second webinar on PPP, as in the new stimulus program, as well as there is a new economic disaster relief loan program. And you'll hear more about him in a minute. But we have with us today an executive from the SBA, Ahmad Goree. Our first webinar on this subject, Ahmad answered basically all the questions. So you've got him all by himself today. It should be extremely informative. The program will be monitored by and mentored by Bob Francis. I'd like to remind you, you probably already subscribed to our newsletters. If you don't, you can subscribe by going to fortworthbusinesspress.com. We also have a new podcast series called Fortitude that is gaining a wide audience of listeners, and I invite you to visit those. We've interviewed the top 4 candidates for the Fort Worth mayor's job. It's entertaining, it's fun to listen to, and I hope you'll join that as well as future webinars that we do. I'll turn it over at this time to our editor, Bob Francis.
Hello, welcome to the second program on the stimulus package. For this event, we're going to focus on questions from the audience. And as Rich said, our guest is Ahmad Goree, Lead Economic Development Specialist at the Small Business Administration's DFW office. Welcome, Ahmad. I wonder if you'd tell us a little bit about you and your job at the SBA.
Thank you, Bob, and thank you, Rich, for having me again. I really appreciate the opportunity to share this information. So I am actually from the Metroplex, born and raised in Dallas. Went to H. Grady Spruce High School, had the opportunity to go off to East Texas and attend a historically Black college and university called Jarvis. Came back to Dallas, went to Dallas Baptist, and now working on my doctorate at University of Texas at Arlington, UTA, and joined the SBA back in 2010. So it's coming up on 11 years that I've been with the federal government, specifically with the U.S. Small Business Administration, where I oversee economic development and public information. So we cover 72 Texas counties, a part of my DFW district office. There are 68 offices like mine across the country. So we have offices in just about every major city and territory. So we have a large territory here in Texas. We are divided in about 10 regions. In our district office, we normally rank number 4 out of those 68 offices when it comes to lending to small businesses. Ever since 2015, my district office, we've done over $1 billion in lending to small businesses. And even last year, during the COVID main portion pandemic, we still did over $1 billion in lending in our traditional loan programs outside of PPP and EIDL.
Well, since our last webinar on the stimulus in February, a lot has happened, such as a major winter storm that shut down business in the state for at least a week and did a considerable amount of economic damage. And I know that low interest federal disaster loans are now available as a result of the major disaster declaration. Ahmad, I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about that and what information businesses might need to apply for those loans.
Yeah, Bob, I'm glad you brought that up because that is a major program that we've laid out ever since the winter storm. So any business, nonprofit, even homeowners and renters have the ability to take advantage of SBA's funding as it relates to disaster assistance if they were affected by the winter storms. So we have 2 portions connected with that. We have a physical damage loan, and then we have an economic injury disaster loan attached to that as well. So with the physical damage, if you are a business and your business was damaged physically due to the winter storms, you're able to get up to $2 million in loans with an interest rate of 3%. If you are a nonprofit, you're able to get up to 2 million in loans with an interest rate of 2%. And this is for the anything that was physically damaged within the business. So if you need to replace anything, if you experience any damage on the outside of the business, all of that is affected within this particular piece of funding that's available. For homeowners, if a homeowner experienced damage where they didn't have insurance or didn't have the full amount of insurance to cover any physical damage, they're able to get up to $200,000 in disaster funding for their physical damage. And also renters, if you are a renter and you experience physical damage where you didn't have insurance or your insurance didn't pay the full amount, you're able to get up to $40,000 in disaster assistance for physical damage, including your automobile. And for both homeowners and renters, that interest rate is 1%. And with all of these physical damage loans, the terms can go up to 30 years. So it's a really great program if any of those businesses were affected. To apply for this funding, you would go to sba.gov/disaster assistance, and you will see all the information as it relates to that disaster loan program. You have until April the 20th of 2021 to apply for that funding. And then the second portion attached to that is the economic injury disaster loan portion, which is similar to what we saw during COVID. So even though a business may not have been affected physically, they may have been affected economically, simply because their customers probably couldn't get to their businesses. They couldn't sell their products or services due to the winter storm. So they probably had an economic effect. So we have economic injury disaster loans that go up to 2 million for both for-profits and nonprofits as well. And they're able to apply for that assistance until November. And it's giving them a 6-month recovery period is determined of how much funding they will receive as it relates to an economic injury disaster loan attached to the winter storms. And there's about 100 and so counties now that are eligible for both of these type of fundings. When it first opened up, I think it was maybe about 77, but we've expanded that to about a little over 100 counties across Texas that are declared disaster areas due to the winter storms.
So even if, say, a company has a business, their operations in Fort Worth weren't affected, but if they have operations out in West Texas or something, they can also obviously apply for that.
Absolutely. And then, yes, maybe their business may not have been in one of the areas where the actual winter storm had occurred, but it may have been in an area, a service area, which will open up that door to the economic injury portion of the loan.
Do you have enough experience yet to know what the turnaround time is on any of those?
So during COVID, it was about a 4-week turnaround period. And that's when we were getting a large influx of applications. So we're anticipating it to be a little bit shorter than that. So if they have a perfect application with no hiccups, where we're not requesting any additional information, then it should be a pretty solid turnaround period of about 2 to 3 weeks.
All right. And speaking of questions, if audience there would like to ask questions, please use the Q&A button that should be just below the screen. Here, it's the button with the 2 cartoon dialogue balloons in it, not the one, which is the chat portion. So I'll just go ahead and start asking you some questions, and then there may be some updates from where we were a month or so ago when we last spoke. But what do you think employers should know about the new stimulus bill and how they can take advantage of it?
You know, there's a lot that has changed since we had our last webinar. And I think the main thing for businesses to do is to definitely sign up for our email updates at sba.gov/updates to stay informed with what's changing and what's coming out as it relates to new products and new programs. These programs are consistently changing, as we can see, but the main things that have changed as it relates to the Paycheck Protection program, for instance, President Biden has come in and made some significant changes to the qualifications of the program. He has knocked down a lot of barriers that kept a lot of businesses who otherwise didn't have the opportunity to apply before, that do now have the opportunity to take advantage of the Paycheck Protection Program. One of the main things that we saw was for those independent contractors, sole proprietors, and self-employed individuals who only had the ability to apply if they had a net profit, if they showed a net profit. That barrier has been taken away. So a business within that industry, which is a sole proprietor, independent contractor, or self-employed individual, they could either use their net profit or they could use their gross income to calculate their maximum loan amount. So it's definitely given more of those type of entrepreneurs the ability to take advantage of the Paycheck Protection Program. Where he's also making adjustments where we saw a lot of businesses. There was a rule in there: if you had a felony conviction within 5 years, then you were not eligible to apply. Now the president has come in and knocked down that barrier, where it's only making the Paycheck Protection Program ineligible for those convictions within 5 years that have a fraudulent activity connected to it. The other newest thing is for our immigrant businesses. So immigrant businesses who do have legal status to work here and be here can start taking advantage of the Paycheck Protection Program as well. So those are some of the major game-changing qualifications for the PPP that we've seen so far.
Yeah, that's pretty good. It certainly expands the breadth of who can take advantage of that program quite a bit. Could you talk a little bit about sort of getting the forgiveness application right the first time? That was a lot of questions we had before about that.
Yeah, so the main thing to make sure that you are applying for forgiveness is in order to get the loan forgiven, and we're referring to the Paycheck Protection Program, which is the forgivable loan program that's out there for small businesses affected by COVID. So the whole purpose of the program is payroll, hence the name Paycheck Protection Program. So the whole purpose of the program is to help keep employees on payroll, or if a business had to lay them off, bring them back on payroll. So in order to get the loan forgiven, you have to use at least 60% of those Paycheck Protection proceeds on payroll. You could use all 100% on payroll if you desire, but at least 60% must be used in order to get it forgiven, and not more than 40% on operating costs. And operating costs includes things such as your rent, your interest on your mortgage, your utilities for your business, which include your electric bill, your telephone, your internet access, your transportation costs. And there's new things that have been added because we realized that a lot of businesses had to spend money to purchase personal protective equipment, or PPE. So that's also a forgivable expense. They may have to have fortified their business, like put up shielding in their business to fight off COVID. That's also a forgivable expense, a part of that, not more than 40%. So that's what we really want businesses to focus on, is getting this loan completely forgiven, which means they don't have to pay it back. So in order to get it forgiven, you must apply for forgiveness, and you have to apply for forgiveness through your lending institution. The same institution that gave you the loan is where you apply. And you have to submit a forgiveness application, and you must submit that forgiveness applications within 10 months of the end of your covered period. So your covered period is that a period where you selected to choose to spend your money, either 8 and 24 weeks, or if you got a loan after December, it's anywhere between 8 and 24 weeks. So you have to apply for forgiveness within 10 months. And then your lender has 60 days to review it and make a recommendation on if it's going to be forgiven. Then SBA has 90 days to make that decision. So you want to make sure that you're using the funds for those forgivable purposes to get it forgiven. You want to make sure that you're submitting the forgiveness application within that 10-month time period. And you want to make sure that you're working with your accountant, your lender, or if you have access to your tax preparer, to make sure that you're putting all the information down correctly. And if you don't have any of those resources, we have a very powerful resource partner there in Tarrant County called the Small Business Development Center, that's connected to Tarrant County College. And they have business advisors that can walk you through that forgiveness process and help you get your documentation together, help you get your calculations correct, and make sure that you are applying the most efficient and accurate way in order to get the loan forgiven. We also have a SCORE chapter out there, which is also an SBA resource partner that's capable of assisting with these particular forgiveness applications as well. So that's my suggestion and my recommendation, to make sure that you get this loan forgiven and you get it the information on the forgiveness application correctly.
And excuse me, I'll ask that question. The TCC, is that what where you said that?
Correct.
Right. Okay. And is that, which campus is that?
So they're not a part of a specific campus. They are part of the Gwynn Center. Yeah, the Gwynn Center, that's a part of Tarrant County College. So they're able to help you there. And both of those resources are in the same building. So the Small Business Development Center in the Fort Worth SCORE chapter, both are in that same Gwynn complex.
Okay, yeah, that's where I thought it was. Okay. Got two questions here. I'll ask one of them first because I think it applies more to what you're just talking about. What if the employer and employees are working from home and don't have a physical location anymore? Does 100% have to go towards payroll?
Yeah, that's a great question. So if you're using your home as your office, then yeah, certain portions of your of your home can be considered your office. So my suggestion is to work with your accountant, or if you don't, work with that Small Business Development Center or SCORE chapter to make sure that you're calculating whatever percentage of your home is your office, whatever percentage you utilize your vehicle for your business purposes, or your phone, your internet, things like that. So my suggestion is to work with one of those business advisors or your accountant to make sure you're getting the accurate percentages accounted for, so you get the maximum most out of this loan program as possible. But just because you're working from home does not disqualify you. You're definitely eligible to utilize this program for either payroll or those operating costs.
And I certainly don't want to speak as an accountant because I'm not, but I the ones I've talked to, they feel like the IRS is probably going to be more lenient this year than probably ever before in terms of the home office and what qualifies and what doesn't. So that's something you should talk with your accountant about. Another question there: can you post the address and phone numbers for the SBA development with TCC and SCORE? We'll put that in the chat. I'm sure we can get that up there. Another question: we suffered 25% or more drop in gross income during the months of March, April, and May. Many others as well. Will SBA consider 3 consecutive months? You know what she's referring to there?
Yeah. So if you are accessing the Paycheck Protection Program for the very first time, which means you're going to apply for a first draw, then that 25% reduction does not affect your loan application. The 25% reduction is only for those businesses that are looking to apply for the Paycheck Protection Program for a second time, which means they're trying to get a second draw loan. So the way that works is that's the second draw loans are for the most hardest hit small businesses that are out there. So you have to meet 3 criteria. You must have already received a first draw loan and have completely spent it. You must have not more than 300 employees, and you must show a 25% reduction in your gross receipts from a comparable quarter in 2019 to that same quarter in 2020. So you must meet those 3 criteria in order to get a second draw PPP loan. But again, if you're accessing the program for the first time, that 25% reduction does not affect you.
Okay. And work on getting that other question answered. Can you talk a little bit about that? I know the latest package had a lot that aimed at nonprofits and venues, live music, etc. Can you talk a little bit about how those businesses, what they should be doing?
Yeah, that's a great question. So out of the economic aid package that was passed in December, created a program called the Shutter Vineyards Operators Grant, or SVOG. And this is specifically for businesses that are kind of like in the entertainment type industry. It provides grant opportunities for those businesses that were affected by the COVID. So it provides up to $10 million in grants for these type of venues. And these venues are live venue operators or promoters, theatrical producers, live performing art organizations, and motion picture theater operators, museums, zoos, aquariums, talent representatives. I'll have the ability to take advantage of this grant opportunity. So we're finally rolling out this grant opportunity on April the 8th. So in the meantime, if you meet one of those eligible entities that I just named, you can start registering your business in the System for Award Management, and that's sam.gov, sam.gov. So you have to register your business in that particular database in order to receive any type of grant or contract from the federal government. So definitely review. We have more information at sba.gov/SVO grant. One word, sba.gov /SVO grant for Shutter Venues Operators Grant, where you could review the frequently asked questions about the program and video tutorials on the eligibility of the program. So it's a really great program. It's for both for-profits and nonprofits that are in that sector of business. And what's recently changed due to the American Rescue Plan, prior to this, you couldn't have applied for both the Paycheck Protection Program and the Shutter Venues Operators Grant. Now you can apply for both of them. Just so you know, if you apply for the Shutter Venues Operator Grant and you did receive a PPP, then your PPP amount is going to be deducted from that Shutter Venues Operators Grant amount. But you are eligible to take advantage of both of those programs today. Other programs for nonprofits are also the PPP. Nonprofits have the ability to take advantage of the Paycheck Protection Program as well. And that includes our faith-based institutions, houses of worship, and churches, as well as chambers of commerce. That's new. They're able to apply. Veterans nonprofits can apply. News organizations can now apply for the PPP. So we've opened up the door a lot more for eligibility as relates to the Paycheck Protection.
Well, we appreciate that. And I thought I saw something the other day about perhaps maybe some new offerings for restaurants, which have been very hard hit by this. What can you tell us a little bit about how they can take advantage of this program?
Yeah, so what you've heard is the new grant program that's coming out. It's not out yet, but it was passed a part of the American Rescue Plan, and it's called the Restaurant Revitalization Fund. And it's opening up grant opportunities for restaurants that are still being impacted by COVID-19. We don't have any details yet. The agency is still filtering out that information and putting that qualification information together. Again, sign up for our email updates at sba.gov/updates, or follow our local Twitter account at SBA DFW, where we're constantly posting information as it comes out. As it relates to the Paycheck Protection Program, if you are a restaurant and you're looking to access a second draw loan, which means you're trying to get it for a second time, your calculation is a little bit higher than what it was before. So for restaurants, it used to be 2.5 times your average monthly payroll costs. Now it's 3.5 times your average monthly payroll costs, which determines the maximum PPP loan amount. So we've increased that because we know restaurants will hit harder than they were prior to COVID.
Is there anything that you've noticed that any sort of, what are the common mistakes people make when they're applying for these programs?
Yeah, the most popular things that businesses have done really to jeopardize them not accessing the funding on time is their calculations. So the calculations is the main thing. You want to make sure that you're getting your payroll calculations correct. And if you're using those operating costs, you're getting those operation operational calculations correct as well. Again, it is highly recommended that you work closely with your accountant if you have access to one, to make sure that you're getting that information in correctly so it doesn't delay your application and cause you to miss out on the funding opportunity. And again, if you don't have access to an accountant, work with our resource partners, either at the Small Business Development Center, they're part of Tarrant County College, or that Fort Worth SCORE chapter, and let them walk you through that process of applying to this program. And also work closely with your lender to make sure that the application is submitted correctly. But that's what the main thing is. Those calculations have been an issue for businesses in getting the maximum benefit of the program.
If I remember right, last time there was a link to a list of the lenders that are available out there. That might be good to put up there as well. As I recall, that list had expanded from when the first program was announced.
Yeah, well, you can always access our lender match tool, which is sba.gov/lender match. And you're able to be coupled up with a lender. And also sba.gov/paycheck protection fine is another way. Or they could contact our local SBA office, and you could call us at 817-684-5500. And we can get you connected with some lenders here in the Metroplex that are accepting new applications for businesses. But be mindful, the deadline is still March the 31st. That's next week. So if you have not gotten in contact with the lender, you need to do it as soon as possible. And the deadline is for your application to be submitted to SBA, not to apply for the program, but for your application to be submitted to SBA. So you have to give it a little bit of time for you to apply in your banking institution to submit it to SBA. But that deadline is still March the 31st.
Yeah, so we're cutting it close here. Yeah, it's certainly true. All right. I don't see any other questions. If please send us some if you have some. What else would you like to point out? Any other industries that the SBA is focusing on?
So the main thing is right now that we're really focusing on is the Shuttered Vineyards Operators Grant, which is going to open up again April the 8th. That's a program that we've been highly anticipating getting rolled out, and we're excited that it's finally rolling out. The other program is the Targeted Ide Advance. This is also a grant opportunity, but hence the name, it's targeted. So it's going to be for targeted small businesses that either applied for an Ide Advance last year and didn't get the full 10,000. So this program will balance that out. So let's say, for instance, you only got 6,000 last time. This program will balance it out by giving you an additional 4,000 for a total of 10,000. Or if you applied for the Ide Advance last year and you missed out on the funding because the funding ran out. So the Targeted Advance is going to be for those businesses that fit in that criteria. So we're going to email invites for you to go in and take advantage of the Targeted Advance. However, in order to get the Targeted Advance, you must meet 3 criteria. You must be in a low-income area. We have a mapping tool on our website where you could type in your address to see if you're in a federally low-income area. You must demonstrate a 30% loss in revenue, and you may not have more than 300 employees. So if you meet those 3 criteria, then you're eligible for the Targeted Advance if you applied for the Ide loan last year and got the advance and didn't get the full amount, or you didn't get any other amounts for it because the funding ran out. So that's a program that's on its way right now. We've already started emailing those invites, and businesses have already started taking advantage of it. Just to give you a kind of a report card of how we've done so far as it relates to the Paycheck Protection Program. So here in Texas, since the beginning of the year, we've approved 236,000 Paycheck Protection Program loans in Texas, accounting for about $15 billion. And that puts us number 2 in the country, just behind California and just above the number 3 spot, which is Florida. So we're number 2 when it comes to Paycheck Protection program funds going to small businesses.
Any breakdown on size of businesses those have gone to? Do you have any idea for that?
Yeah, so the majority of the loans, more than about 90% of the loans are typically under $150,000. So that goes to show you those are going to really, really small businesses.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, that's all the questions I have, and I don't have any more questions from the audience. Anything else you want to say, Ahmad?
Yeah, again, this information is consistently changing, consistently updating. There's new programs that are going to roll out, a part of the American Rescue Plan that was passed a few weeks ago. So stay up to date with us by going to sba.gov/updates and enter your email address so we could send you like newsletters on when this information is changing. And if you have that local Twitter, if you have access to Twitter, follow our local Twitter account at SBA DFW, where we're constantly posting live updates as these programs change. Again, we are your most trusted source when it comes to these programs. We know there's a lot of misinformation being funneled out there. So definitely pay attention to sba.gov or treasury.gov to get the most accurate information about any of these programs. And I'm gonna post my office contact information, the Dallas-Fort Worth SBA office, where if any business has any questions about any of these programs, to definitely give us a call at our local SBA office, and we'll be able to answer your questions or direct you to a business advisor to help you navigate through these processes.
Okay, I just had a couple more questions come in, so I'll ask those. Asked to define target event and idle event.
Sure.
Talked about a minute ago.
Yeah, so it's the targeted idle advance. And the targeted idle advance is a targeted program. It's only for those businesses that apply for a targeted, who applied for an advance last year in 2020. So there was a advance that was up to $10,000. There was a grant last year. So for businesses that didn't get that full 10K, this targeted advance is gonna total that out, balance that out for them. Or if they applied for the advance last year and they didn't get any of the funding because the funding ran out, this new program is going to allow them to get that $10,000. But they must meet 3 criteria, which is they must be in a federally low income area. SBA is determining that, or you could go to our website, sba.gov, and go to /coronavirus relief, and you will see the mapping tool there where you can enter your address to see if you're in that federally low income area. 2, they must show a 30% reduction in their gross receipts. And then 3, they may not have more than 300 employees. So that's how the targeted advance works. So we're emailing invites. There's nothing that you have to do. You don't have to go apply for it. SBA is going to initiate an email invite for you to apply for the program.
All right, and this is a follow-up from an earlier question. The business owner says our first PPP loan has been forgiven. So looking at second, again, our 25% or more drop was incurred for the months of March, April, May, which is not a standard quarter. Oh, okay, I see. Yeah. So I think the previous question was, will that quarter qualify? I think is what she's asking.
Yeah, so it seems like we need to get them in contact with a business advisor at the either Terrence Small Business Development Center to look at that situation personally and figure out how they may navigate through that. But they must have show a 25% reduction in a quarter in 2019 compared to that same quarter in 2020.
Right.
We probably need to get them with a business advisor to look at that situation more interpersonal.
Okay. All right. All right, and that's all I have. I really appreciate you taking the time again. This seems to be like an ever-changing issue, and you had a lot of new details that we didn't have a month ago. So it was great. I want to thank our audience for coming on. Rich, do you want to say anything else?
Thank you, Ahmad. Thank you, Bob. Ahmad, and you may have answered this. I got distracted for a minute, but so if someone, I noticed one of the questions was they've called and they haven't been able to reach somebody. What you may have answered that, but what would you say to somebody who's calling your office and for one reason or another can't get through?
So let me put my email address and our district office email address in the chat. So we've been getting a lot of influx of calls, but we are calling back. I'm actually one of the ones making the phone calls back, but we are making our way and getting those calls returned. But I will put our DFW email box in the chat. So if anybody wants to email that, we could definitely give you a response back. But we are returning calls as soon as possible. It may not be that same day, but we are returning the calls. Let me get this email box address here. And again, if you're looking for technical assistance, definitely reach out to that Tarrant Small Business Development Center, who can provide you that technical assistance. And if you have general questions, they also can answer that. So that's also an additional source for you to reach out to if you are not getting a faster response that you desire.
That's getting your email and your phone number is well worth the price of admission here. I've had personal experience with this, and I've found Ahmad to be incredibly helpful. It's not just because we have this relationship, but he's just very customer focused. And so if you've had that problem, I think you'll find, you're in a special group to be on this webinar and get that information because he's incredibly responsive. So thank you. These things are changing. We have a lot of new information. I want to thank Bob and you for being on. I want to remind people, go to fortworthbusinesspress.com, sign up for our newsletters, look at our website. You can get a subscription to become an insider. We have several stories in the course of a week and a month that the only way you can access those is to be a paid subscriber. And we're like all the businesses that are on here. We depend on our customers to help keep us going, quite frankly, and that's through advertising and subscriptions. So we've got a special on right now, $96 a year, and well worth the price. We have other webinars coming up. Please look for them. We're going to do one on cybersecurity, which is a huge problem these days. And if you have a suggestion for a webinar you'd like to see, please submit that. Go to our website, send us an email, and we'll certainly consider it. Thank you for everybody participating, and we'll see you on the next webinar.